The story begins in a large country house, in which, despite the late hour, the lights were burning brightly, and loud sounds were coming from there. A man who was probably their killer was walking further and further around the room. This man continued his work and once again shot two men. One of them fell, bleeding, and the other, who was standing behind him at that moment, screamed in horror. In fear, the man fell to the floor and asked to be left alive, offering a lot of money in return, arguing that his death would not bring back a certain girl. But the man was adamant. It turned out to be a young guy with a pistol and a knife in his hands. He was determined to finish what he started. After that, saying that it's all over, he raises his hand and pulls the trigger. A shot occurs. He really did everything as he had planned before. Further events take us a year ahead, to the peaceful city of Bianzhou, which looks like an ordinary peaceful town. People walk everywhere and cars drive. The same guy who was holding a gun is now standing near a mobile store. It looks like he is buying refrigerators, color TVs, and used phones. This guy's name is Chen Liuhe. At this moment an accident occurs before his eyes. A black car hits a pedestrian. As a result, the pedestrian fell to the ground and screamed loudly in pain, and the driver got out of the black car. Surprised passers-by stood around. The driver of the car turned out to be a beautiful woman wearing high black heels and a red formal suit. Her hair was an unusual red color. Her name was Qin Ruhan. She worriedly approached a pedestrian who was lying on the road and asked if he was okay. In reply, the man who was lying on the ground in anger says that he almost died and broke both legs. He asks her how she wants to deal with this situation, with or without the police. It seems that everyone around understood that this was just an acting game and the guy was actually an ordinary scammer who wanted easy money. Qin Ruhan, also understanding this, offers the victim to take him to the hospital, and if her guilt is proven then she agrees to bear full responsibility for what happened. The guy on Earth agrees, but he warns that she is obliged to accompany him to the hospital and that her guilt will still be proven. The girl understands that he is a fraudster and does not intend to hang around with him all day. Because of this, she turns to Chen Liuhe and says that she has absolutely no time, asks to take the victim to the hospital. In response, the guy was very surprised. He replies that he does not have time for this, and that he has other things to do. He is trading at full speed, earning a couple of yuan per minute. In response to this, Qin Ruhan gave him money to close the hospital account and offers to take 500 for herself as compensation, asking if this is enough. Chen Liuhe joyfully says that of course this is enough and asks to be allowed to do this business. He says that helping others matters about his life. Approaching the guy who was still lying on the road, he asks him why he is still lying there and pretending, because he already has the money. The girl heard this and was indignant. What she heard made her very angry. The girl approached these two and asked them what he just said. Qin Ruhan realized that the two of them were at the same time. But the guy whom she allegedly hit is indignant at this answer and says that he was hit without reason, and now she opens her mouth and insists that his leg is broken. For plausibility, Chen Liuhe claims that he will watch. Turning to the victim, he says that if he started playing a performance, then he needs to be patient until the end. The guy asks in bewilderment what he is talking about. At that moment Chen grabs his leg and squeezes with all his might. It looks like he broke it. Because of this, the unfortunate man screamed loudly in pain, but our hero did not pay any attention to this, because after all, he had planned it himself. Now his leg was really broken. Qin Ruhan was very surprised when she saw this. She couldn't believe that ordinary scammers were capable of this. She says that she remembered him, after which she gets into the car and drives away, and the unfortunate guy with a broken leg continued to scream. Chen Liuhe, I turn to him, says why he continues to scream and invites him to go to the hospital, because he has money, but in response he receives threats. The main character is not one of those who is afraid of such trifles. He replies that he knows that 3 of his friends are nearby. He says all this while lighting a cigarette. After which he adds that since he was able to break his leg with his hand, he can do the same with his friends. Confidence is visible on his face. Hearing these words, all 4 of them were very scared. None of them intended to start a fight with this guy. After this, our hero leaves on his portable bench. He feels his complete impunity. Seeing this, one of the guys still offers to catch up with him and beat him, but it seems the other 3 did not agree with him. They tell him to talk less nonsense and help them get the victim to the hospital, and they will deal with him later. After this, events take us to Bianzhou University. This is a tall, modern, white building. It is here that the main character drives up at high speed in his mobile bench. He drives at such a speed that the dresses of the girls passing by fly up. It seems that because he was driving so fast, he didn't notice how he scratched someone's car. Because of this, the driver got out and started swearing at him, asking where he came from so lost. Two guys stood nearby. They looked with amazement at the girl whose name was Shin, calling her a goddess. The girl was really very beautiful. She had a beautiful face and long black hair. She was dressed in a white outfit. Chen Liuhe approached her and said that he was glad she came. In response she said that he was late. They both did not hide the joy on their faces. Turning to Chingu, the hero tells her to sit down more comfortably, but the girl didn't seem to quite understand what he was going to do now. When suddenly Chen Liuhe picks up the girl along with the stroller and takes her away, the two guys who were standing nearby were very surprised. They did not know how to react to this. As a result, Shin Chingu ended up on his mobile bench. As it turned out, she was under the care of the main character. The girl was the only one from the Shin clan. Getting behind the wheel, Chen Liuhe says that he earned some money today and offers to return home and have a delicious dinner. In response, the girl nodded approvingly. Arriving home, the heroes find themselves in front of a portrait of a man who was standing on the table. As it turned out, it was the girl's brother. She asks him if he still remembers the promise he made to their grandfather a long time ago. The guy who was on the side all this time tells her to be calm and that he and his grandfather agreed that he would not take a single step in Beijing for 3 years. But Shin Chingu didn't seem to be amused by these words at all. Sadness was visible on her face. She asks what will happen in 3 years and why he still can't stop worrying. In response, she hears that he is just a simple person, and simple people do not forgive anything. After that, Chen Liuhe's phone rang. He picked up the receiver and said that he was a master of a wide range of home services. In response to this, the voice on the phone asked him to help with plumbing. The guy agrees and asks to leave the address. The female voice on the phone seemed very familiar to him, but he could not remember where he had heard it before. Chen Liuhe, leaving, tells the girl that he will return soon. Shin Chingu looked very sad at the same time. It seems she didn't want him to leave now. She asks him to be careful. Events take us to the Hanqing Pear Garden Quarter. The guy came to the address and rang the doorbell. When it opened, he was very surprised. He quickly realized whose voice he heard on the phone. Standing in front of him was a woman whom he had cheated out of money this morning. She asked him why he was so surprised. But the guy was not at all embarrassed. He replied that it doesn't matter who, what matters is whether he has money, so let's get started quickly. Walking into the woman's house, he notices that it is very beautiful here. In response, Chen Ruhan tells him to talk less and go do his job. He needed to fix the toilet. Chen Liuhe indignantly asks whether in such a situation it was necessary to call him, because it was possible to find a repairman. To which the girl sarcastically replies that isn't he a master of a wide range of household services, and if he can't handle it, then the false call will be on his conscience. To which the guy, in bewilderment, said that he had just started working and did not understand what kind of false call he was talking about. Chen Ruhan continued to mock him, saying that she would demand compensation. Chen Liuhe, understanding why the woman is so angry with him, tries to justify herself and says that he was not at the same time with that guy, and if she wants to get her money back, she should find him. But this made her even angrier and, in a raised voice, she said that if he couldn't fix her bathtub today, she would sue him. Inside herself, she understood that she was too angry and thought that she was very lucky, because she came across this guy on whom she could take it out. The guy reacted neutrally and said that he didn't care about her threats and that he was leaving. Chen Ruhan did not want to just let him go and began to say that she would complain about illegal entry, robbery, or even worse, because he came to her house. She really wasn't joking. The woman had already started dialing the police number, but at that moment the guy asked her to stop and said that he would do whatever she asked of him. An hour later, the guy fixed everything that Chen Ruhan asked him to do, and the girl, in turn, was surprised at how quickly he did everything. But the guy was not going to work for free and announced the price for the work done. He demanded 800 from the woman. In response, she was indignant in a loud tone at the number that Chen Liuhe told her, while she understood that he was just trying to play with her. But this game can be played by two people, so she said that he ruined her branded underwear that she was drying in the bathroom, and because of this, taking into account the payment for his work, he owes her 400. Because of this, they started shouting at each other and everyone tried to prove that they were right. Suddenly the anger on the guy's face gave way to puzzlement. He looked out the window, and the girl, not understanding what was happening, asked what was wrong with him. A moment later, Chen Liuhe pushes Qin Ruhan to the floor. At the same second a bullet flies through the window, glass shards scatter throughout the apartment. They were both lying on the floor. The woman screamed in fear, but they were both alive. If the guy had hesitated for a second, everything would have been much worse. Looking through the broken window, the guy realized that someone was trying to kill Qin Ruhan. Most likely it was a sniper, and now he is somewhere nearby. They continued to lie on the floor. There were shards of glass everywhere and the tools that the guy had used to fix the plumbing that had fallen out of the bag. Chen Liuhe warns the girl that it was a sniper and that she should be careful. Qin Ruhan was very scared and could not say a word. After this, the shooter, realizing that he was unable to complete the task, begins to shoot uncontrollably at the windows, causing them to fly apart in all directions. At the same moment, the guy without hesitation grabs the girl and runs behind the sofa in an attempt to save her. She was very scared all this time, so she did not stop screaming. Chen Liuhe had to cover her mouth with his hand to make it more difficult for the sniper to notice them. After that, the guy stuck his head out from behind the sofa to assess the situation, and at the same moment a bullet flew literally a couple of centimeters from his head. Realizing that he was damn lucky, he hid behind the sofa again. As it turned out the sniper was a real master and he almost disfigured him. Chen Liuhe knew that he needed to make sure that the shooter lost sight of them, and when he saw the adjustable wrench lying on the floor, an idea came to his mind. Making a quick jerk, he grabbed the key and quickly threw it into the chandelier, causing it to shatter into pieces. Thanks to his actions, the light went out in the room in which they were located, and now it was very difficult for the sniper to notice them. The shooter realized that he was dealing with an unusual person who was helping his goal, contacted him by radio and said that he had force majeure and that he needed a little more time. Realizing that from this point the soldier will not be able to fulfill his assignment, he leaves. He needs to come up with some other way. At this time, in a room without light, a guy, assessing the situation, said that it was all over, and Qin Ruhan continued to sit at the sofa in fear. Chen Liuhe, trying to defuse the situation, says that she even attracted the sniper with her attractiveness, but the girl was not happy at all. She only now realized what had happened. Having confirmed that it was an attack, the guy collected his tools and was about to leave. He did not have time to talk. Mentioning that they were lucky, because the sniper did not complete his job and they managed to survive, the guy said goodbye and headed to the door. But Qin Ruhan was not going to let the guy go so easily. Overcoming the feeling of strong fear, she screamed after him and asked him to stop. She never fully came to her senses, her whole body was trembling, and the girl grabbed her head with her hands. It didn't fit in her head that they wanted to kill her. Chen Liuhe just laughed at this and asked why she was sitting at the sofa for so long because the sniper had already left a long time ago. Qin Ruhan asked what should I do if he returns. The guy answered her sarcastically that, of course, if the killer returns, then she will have to hide again. At this moment, Liuhe noticed that the girl began to shake even more. She was incredibly scared. The guy wondered what she could have done, that someone had to hire a sniper to take revenge on her. Qin Ruhan only became uncertainly embarrassed. Chen Liuhe realized that she was not going to answer and pretended that she didn't know and already intended to leave, but at that moment he was grabbed by the jacket. Qin Ruhan approached him with an embarrassed look and asked him not to leave yet. The guy was very surprised by such a reaction. He looked at the girl's face and saw that tears were appearing in her eyes. She was very scared. After all, Qin Ruhan said that she was very afraid. Chen Liuhe did not miss the opportunity to mock her and noticed that all her recent courage and cunning had instantly disappeared somewhere, and now she asks to stay with her. The girl did not expect such a reaction. She was both surprised and scared. She did not know what to do next. And because of the stress she has experienced, she lashes out at the guy and shouts at him to leave her house and that if they kill her, it shouldn't concern him. He got her. The guy replied that he doesn't care. That same evening, Chen Liuhe and Shin Chingu walked through the streets. The guy told a funny joke. They both had fun. Everything was as usual. Suddenly they notice a woman driving an expensive red car. It was Qin Ruhan. Shin Chingu asks the guy who it is and if he knows her. Chen Liuhe was shocked. He didn't understand what she was doing here. The guy assumed that this woman was obsessed with him. He, trying to avoid dialogue and pretending that he did not know Qin Ruhan, quickly took his companion. but she suddenly asked the stranger if she needed anything. The woman was not going to just leave, she continued to walk towards the couple with a confident step, but at that time the guy realized that the conversation could not be avoided. Coming closer, she turned to him, calling him Mr. Chen. She said that she had come to ask him to help her overcome some difficulties. In response, the guy was surprised and noticed that she had changed her behavior very much and became more serious. Did this really happen because of yesterday's events? Shin Chingu didn't understand what they were talking about. Qin Ruhan was disgusted by this behavior. She said that she had an important matter that needed to be discussed, and that if he helped her, she would not be in debt. After hearing this, the guy immediately changed his tone. Now he agreed to listen to the woman, because if you have money, then there is no problem. So that no one would disturb them, all three went to the nearest cafe. Now they can discuss everything in a calm atmosphere. Qin Ruhan said that a gang called the Black Dragon wants to take away the establishment that her father owns. She asks the guy to help her protect her father's property. The woman gives an envelope and says that this is information about black dragons. The guy replied that he had heard about them. They are very dangerous, asks why Qin Ruhan didn't go to the police. She replies that there is no point in this, because her father tried to negotiate, but nothing worked out for him, and besides, he died in an accident a couple of days ago. These thoughts made the woman very upset. Everyone around understood that she was in danger. The guy noticed that now they would come out to her. Qin Ruhan understands this and adds that now the gang does not need shares, now they want to directly own the establishment, which is valued at 2 million. She saw information about the guy and knows that he has military merits and that he used to be a high-class bodyguard. She hopes that he will help her. As a reward, the woman offers to take on all of his sister's expenses for the hospital and life, and also resolve the issue with his work. Chen Liuhe is disingenuous that he is ready to take on this work, but not because of the money, but Shin Chingu, realizing that he is lying, waves his head indignantly. Qin Ruhan was very glad that the guy agreed. A feeling of gratitude was visible on her face. She sincerely thanked him. As she leaves, the woman says that they have a maximum of 3 days and they need a good plan. Chen Liuhe replies that there is no problem and recommends that she calm down. At the exit from the cafe, Qin missed a blonde man, after which he entered the cafe and addressed Chen Liuhe and Shin Chingu, called them brother and sister. It was Huang Bai, a good friend and neighbor with whom you can talk about everything. He asked who this beauty was who had just left the cafe. The guy, without hiding the joy on his face, answers him that she is just his sponsor. Bai saw a wad of money and says that Chen is rich. Seeing so much money, the man asked the guy to take his share, to which he replied without any problems and that they could earn this money together. But first, making a serious face, Chen says that first he needs to go somewhere and check on someone. Bai, with army sternness, replies that he is ready. 3 days have passed. The story takes us to an institution that a gang of black dragons want to take away. Concerned Qin Ruhan tries to call Chen Liuhe, but in response she hears that the dialed number is unavailable. She cannot understand where the guy has gone. The woman angrily throws the phone on the table. She is furious. Suddenly a worker runs up to her and says that he with the surname Zhou brought a lot of people with him and asks her to quickly look. She replies that the waiter should take all these people to her office and stop panicking, but at the same time the alarm was visible on her face. A crowd of bandits came to the office, and their leader says that they practically signed an agreement with concessions of demands. But Qin Ruhan, responding to the bandit whose name is Zhou Yongkang, says that this establishment is also the flesh of my father and she cannot just give it to a gang of bandits. The leader of the bandits hints that if she does not sign the agreement, then they will always have backup measures with which they can force her to do so. The villain adds that he is very gentle towards women and he really doesn't want to do all these terrible things and hurt such a beautiful and young woman. Qin Ruhan is enraged by such statements. Zhou Yongkang, continuing to threaten, says that if she does not care about her own fate, then let her think about her loved ones, for example, her little brother. Threats towards her younger brother finally drive the woman and herself away. She says that if they touch him, they won't get away with it. The bandit does not believe the woman's threats. He only notices that she is very hot and regrets that the old man only wants her to give them the establishment. Zhou Yongkang changed his tone and said that he was counting to 3, and if she did not sign the document, then her relatives would die at that very second, and if she did, she could still receive compensation. After this, The bandit immediately began his report with the number 3, Chin Ruhan was on the verge, she was filled with anger, but she could not do anything. After the villain said the number 2, the woman realized that she would have to sign the document. She began to apologize to her father and brother for not being able to preserve the family capital. When she heard the number 1, there was a response from Chin Ruhan, who said that she was ready to sign the document on the bandit's terms. Satisfied, Zhou Yongkang says that when she signs this agreement, she doesn't have to worry, promising her and her brother complete safety. He moved the piece of paper closer. The next moment, a noise was heard from the side. Someone burst into the room and knocked out one of the bandits. All those present turned their heads in surprise. The leader's bodyguard stood up and was ready for a fight. Zhou Yongkang jumped up from the sofa. He was furious and could not understand who had the courage to burst in at such an inopportune moment. It was Chen and Bai, who quickly dealt with all the bandits who were guarding the entrance to the office. With a smile on his face, the guy noticed that he made it just in time. Chin Ruhan was in 7th heaven, her bodyguard finally came, she was saved. Zhou Yongkang, being very irritated, turned his head towards the woman and asked what it all meant and what was happening here. But the guy answered instead. He said that he was the deputy chairman, and recommended that they stop even thinking about buying this establishment. The bandit leader was beside himself with rage. He asked Chen Liuhe who he was, and whether Chin's words about agreement were really empty. Ruhan, turning to the guy in a whisper, noticed that he really came too late and what plan he had with him. Zhou Yongkang, filled with anger, says well, but reminds him not to be told later that he didn't warn anyone about anything. But Chen Liuhe asked the bandit to stay for a couple more minutes and told him not to rush, because he still had something to talk about. The villain, seeing his photographs, became even more angry. He could not understand how someone like him dared to dig under him. The guy replied that it took him a lot of effort to take these photographs and suggested that the bandit think about what would happen to his position in the gang if his wife saw this. But Zhou Yongkang tried to pretend that nothing was in danger for him, and that even if his wife found out about the betrayal, nothing would happen to him. After that, Chen Liuhe took out several more photographs that showed him with his father-in-law's woman, while sarcastically praising his skills. Seeing this, the leader's bodyguard could not contain her rage and made the first move and struck with all her might, but the guy was able to block this blow. Chin Ruhan was very scared because of this. She did not expect such a turn of events. Chen Liuhe, having blocked the blow, notices that it was very strong, jokingly tells the girl that with such a character it will be difficult for her to find a man. But there was no time to chat. After he blocked the blow, he counterattacks with his right hand, but the opponent also blocks his blow. The guy's eyes lit up and a smile appeared on his face. He had not seen such a skillful enemy in front of him for a long time. He managed to appreciate the girl's skills. Due to the fact that the opponent's forces were approximately equal, as a result of the skirmish they flew away from each other in different directions. Chen Liuhe, after the incident, arrogantly sits on the sofa, demonstrating his superiority, while his rival was trying to assess the situation. This behavior of the guy greatly angered her. She decided to continue the fight and began to take out her weapon. But Chen Liuhe at that moment he raised his hand calling for a stop, after which he asked the bandits to think it over again in the end. Zhou Yongkang, mistakenly assuming that the guy is trying to avoid a fight out of fear, wants the deal to go through in the end. Well, in fact, the guy knew another secret of the bandit, which is that he is stealing money from his father-in-law and you propose to discuss all the conditions again. The villain did not tolerate such impudence and ordered his bodyguard to beat the guy so that he would think before making such statements. The girl took out a knife and rushed at Chen, but he was still careless and continued to sit on the sofa, only saying that her attack was too impulsive. They suggested that she calm down a little, and he repelled her quick blow with a sharp kick. But this did not bother her opponent. She quickly regrouped and launched a second attack. But during the second jerk, the guy threw an ashtray at her and she had to stop her jerk in order to repel such a vile move. But at the moment when the ashtray broke on her hand, Chen was already standing in front of her. She was very surprised by his speed. A moment later he strikes with all his might. The blow was of monstrous force. The girl started bleeding from her mouth. The guy ended the fight with one precise blow and added that she should not have waved the knife in front of him. After that, he turned to the leader of the bandits and hinted that it seemed that he now had an advantage in the negotiations. But Zhou Yongkang thought completely differently, looked condescendingly at the guy and told him to think again. At first Chen didn't understand what was going on, but looking back he saw the girl he had just defeated getting to her feet. It was very strange, usually after such a blow it takes time to recover. Chin Ruhan, watching this whole picture, trembled, just like the time when she was assassinated. She was very afraid and did not understand what would happen next. Meanwhile, the bodyguard of the bandit leader stood up and took out a syringe with an unknown liquid, which she injected directly into her leg. The area nearby was immediately covered with strange veins. It looked like it was some kind of drug. Chen knew what it was. He called it the berserker drug. After the injection, the girl makes a quick jerk in the hope of hitting the guy, but he stands as if he does not feel any danger in this. A few moments later, the girl misses another blow. It was so fast that she didn't even notice when the guy did it. During underscore when the girl fell to the floor, Chen said that the drug would not help her because the difference between their powers was too great. Watching this picture, Zhou Yongkong finally lost his temper. He took out a gun and threatened to kill the guy, telling him that today he would die. But this was not destined to happen. The hero with a quick movement of his foot knocks the pistol out of the villain's hands and grabs it himself. After that, he points the gun directly at Zhou's face and asks how he's doing and when they can talk normally. The answer to this is that the bandit asks what he wants because he cannot refuse it. He is just the vice president of the Black Dragon Gang. To solve this issue, we need to find Chairman Chang Yun-fuk. But Chen did not want to hear this chatter. To show the seriousness of his intentions, he fires a pistol. The bullet passes a centimeter from Zhou's head. As it turned out, the bullet passed so close that it managed to leave a wound on the bandit's cheek. It was clear from his face that he was shocked. After this, the guy says that he no longer needs the villain, who in response asks him to stop and leave him alive in exchange for help. Clear from Chen's face that he did not intend to let Zhou go. With a smile on his face, he said that he could only help him die. After this, the villain tried to run away from the office screaming. The hero was very surprised by this and could not understand what he was doing. Joyful Chin Ruhan said thank you to the guy for helping and promised to do whatever he wanted. When Chen heard this, he thought that the woman was hinting at sex. In response, she said that he was crazy, but the guy replied that she should not leave, because he was just joking, and he also added that this was just the beginning. Chin Ruhan looked at him in surprise and asked what he meant, because she thought that everything was already over. Chen says that Zhou will not help them in any way. They need to turn to Chek-Fuk, and they cannot fight with the current forces. They need to prepare everything in case of failure. After 2 days, Chang Yun-fuk invites Chin Ruhan to an unusual restaurant. She hopes that they serve delicious food. They arrived at the restaurant together. Alarm was visible on the woman's face, but the guy did not show it and looked calm. They sat down at a huge table in the presence of several guards. The chairman of the Black Dragon clan said that he was glad to see them. But at the same time, he was dissatisfied with the fact that Brother Chen interfered in the affairs of their clan. He notices that the guy is very confident in himself, perhaps even too much. The hero was really very confident in himself. I turned to the head of the clan. He said that he didn't care who was in front of him. He came here in the hope of negotiations. Chang Yun says that it is useless to negotiate in his case, because he has no advantage. He already knew everything he threatened Zhou with. He turned out to be a coward with no ambition, so he is perfect for the role of a pawn. At least he did not seek to kill Chang Yun and take the throne. Chen hearing this says that first he plays with ordinary girls, and after that he might want to play with the boss's daughter. Unable to tolerate such impudence, the guards pointed their pistols at the hero, because in their opinion he behaved too impudently. Chen, even in such a situation, was absolutely calm. At the moment when the guns were pointed at him, he simply lit a cigarette. Chen was shocked by this behavior. The boss told his bodyguards to cool down, because Chen can only enjoy words, and they have real power, but at the same time asks the guy if he is afraid of sudden death. The hero replies that he is afraid, but they will not be able to kill him. But Chang Yun is definitely afraid to die because he takes so many guards with him to dinner. After Chen's dialogue with the mafia boss, they exchange threats, each of them warning the other about the danger. After this, Chang Yun, assessing the guy's character, invites him to join their gang and offers him a huge share. This is even more than the money that Chin Ruhan gives him. Hearing this, the woman was worried, because he was her only hope, but the guy replied that he didn't care about their gang. The mafia boss accepts this answer, but says not to blame him when the talent he couldn't get suddenly disappears without anyone knowing. It became clear that he was threatening Chen to deal with him here and now, and in response he asked if he was afraid of scaring away the banquet in his restaurant. Chang Yun is sure that in his restaurant the shooting will be mistaken for a firecracker explosion, and the bodies of his enemies will go to feed the fish, because not a single person saw them enter this restaurant. At the moment when guns were pointed at Chen, he says that the owner of the establishment is very hospitable, because he decided to give them a surprise before the meal. He tells him that everything is fine, because now they will be fed plenty of lead. At the same second when the shots rang out, the guy pushed back the chair on which Qin Ruhan was sitting, thereby saving her. Then, with a deft movement, Chen threw the previously picked up chopsticks, with them he pierced the hands of the guard who were holding pistols. But there was a third guard. He approached him from behind, pointed a gun at him and asked if he really wanted to die here. But the guy masterfully confused him by throwing a half-smoked cigarette at him. The guardian hesitated only for a second, but this was enough for Chen to be near him and ready to attack. He grabbed the guard so that he could not hit him with a pistol. A moment later, he quickly kicks the man with such force that he knocks down another bandit who was standing behind him. Thanks to the successful attack, Chen ended up with a pistol in his hands, which he took from the bandit. He fired several shots to neutralize the guards. The guy was confident in his victory. He moved the gun towards the boss and told him to listen carefully when he was warned about the danger. But Chang Yun was not afraid at all. His face was absolutely calm, and in response he advised Chen not to die of happiness. After that, the hero grabbed the bandit and pointed the gun at his back. The villain did not expect such a quick reaction. As it turned out, a sniper had been sitting on the roof of a neighboring house for several hours. The guy had noticed him a long time ago. He recommends that Chang Yun let him go because it's very hot outside. Clear from the villain's face that he was in shock. He couldn't understand how Chen managed to find out that there was a sniper on the roof. He asked him about it. In response he hears that if the guy were so simple, he would not have come to him. Chen invites him to argue who is faster, he or the sniper he hired. At that moment, the villain realized that he no longer had any trump cards up his sleeve and he would have to negotiate. The expression on his face immediately changed. He clearly became kinder. With his right hand he signaled to the sniper to leave the position. The opponents exchanged glances. They both smiled at each other, although it was clear that they hated each other with all their hearts. Realizing the situation he was in, Chang Yun ordered his guards, whom he called useless pieces of meat, to immediately leave his office. After a moment, the anger on his face gave way to a smile. He looked at his guests and invited them to sit down, offering to get acquainted and discuss business over food. The guy happily agreed, because he had not been trying to achieve this all this time, and Qin Ruhan stood up from the table with a frightened look. Chen was pleased because everything was going exactly as he had planned. The woman looked at him with admiration and wondered how he was doing everything so well. After eating, the heroes calmly leave home in a taxi, while the guy calls the mafia boss Boss Chan, as if they were some kind of friends. As soon as the car with the heroes left, the smile on Chang Yun's face disappeared and was replaced by dissatisfaction. He ordered his subordinate to find out more about this guy, because he is not so simple. The boss's relative wondered why all the bodyguards in the hospital, but these two left unharmed, also forced the father-in-law to personally give birth to them. Chang Yun also asked to find him the most retarded bastards, because they will still be useful to him if he cannot recruit Chen, then just get rid of him. Chen and Qin were returning home after negotiations. The woman's face showed that she was worried. She recalled the details of their conversation. Dialogue time. Chang Yun insisted that he receive an income of 80%, because he did a lot for the establishment that Qin's father owned. In return he promises not to touch her and his younger brother. He also added that he had nothing to do with the death of her father, because life is a fragile thing and she cannot blame him for death, but it was clear from his face that this was a lie. Qin Ruhan was furious. She was very angry at Chang Yun's words about her father, but she had no choice. In order to save her brother, she had to agree to the conditions set. But Chen Liuhe tells her not to be upset, because she was able to save 20% of the income from the club and also saved the lives of herself and her younger brother. But in response, the woman with tears in her eyes recalled that these creatures killed her father and are still pretending not to be guilty. She asks the guy why he didn't just kill him. The hero says that if he killed him, it could lead to countless amounts of revenge, but there is no guarantee that the Black Dragon would be destroyed because of this. Qin Ruhan insists that as long as there is an opportunity to avenge her father, she doesn't care. She asks where he wants to start. The guy jokes that in order for him to avenge her father, she will have to offer not only money. Chin Ruhan did not appreciate such humor. She asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. Now she was not at all laughing. Fatigue and sadness were visible on her face. Chen Liuhe says that Chang Yun will not just leave them and that their agreement is all just an excuse. Now they need a moment to attack. The woman asks what kind of opportunity we are talking about. The guy clarifies that the strongest defense disintegrates from the inside. As an option you can use Zhou Yongkang. 3 days have passed. Events again take us to the club that belongs to Qin. In the office, Huang Bai and Chen Liuhe were drinking. The neighbor praises the guy and says how generous and smart he is, that he appointed himself to the post of president, and made him captain of the security service. At that moment, a guest knocked on their door and asked Chen if he had some free time. This morning it turned out to be Zhou Yongkang. The guy was surprised and asked what brought him to his mansion. The guest explained his visit by saying that they had recently signed a contract with Qin, and after all, they were now partners, so he paid him tribute. Chen Liuhe listened to all this and understood that Zhou Yongkang had come with some business, but so far he could not understand what exactly he wanted. As it turned out, the guest wanted to invite the guy to dinner. Since he wanted to apologize for his unworthy behavior, the guy clarified whether Chang Yun would be there. Zhou Yongkang replied that Chang Yun would not be there, just the two of them. It was clear from his face that he had some kind of plan and was up to something. Chen Liuhe agreed. He didn't care about the bandits' plans. He saw in this only an opportunity to bring his plan to life. As a result, they arrived at a local restaurant. Zhou said, "Perhaps the most famous and delicious food in the whole city is prepared here." The whole table was filled with plates of food. Chen ate as much as he could fit in it. The food was very tasty. He had a desire to bring his sister here next time. At one point, Zhou received a call on his phone. He told the guy that he would go away for a couple of minutes. He, in turn, did not mind. Suddenly, just as Chen Liuhe finished eating, a bunch of bandits burst into the restaurant. There were at least 5 of them and they were all armed with machetes. It immediately became clear that they were ordered to kill the guy. The hero expected such an outcome. He just thought that they started very quickly and he couldn't even eat properly. One of the enemies immediately rushed at him with a machete. In response to this, the guy deftly threw an empty glass with the help of a gnawed bone. The glassware broke on the attacker's head. After that, 2 enemies attacked him at once. He was ready to fight. Instead of weapons he had bones. The bandits attacked simultaneously from above, but the guy easily repelled this blow with the help of his improvised weapon. A few moments later, he exerted great force and parried the blow, sending the attackers flying several meters away. It was too early to relax. The bandits didn't even think about stopping. They were pressing from 3 sides. Chen understood that now he was in great danger. Excellent agility allowed him to successfully dodge all blows and at the same time counterattack. He was indeed very strong. He managed to grab one of the bandits by the neck and throw him to the floor with all his strength. After such a strong blow he could no longer recover. The fight, even with so many opponents, was quite easy for him. What hindered him more was that he had overeaten. There was a feeling that he was about to vomit rice. But there was no time for this. The enemies continued to attack. This time one of them attacked from above. Chen Liuhe, with a deft and quick movement, jumped to the side a sufficient distance, thanks to which he remained unharmed. After this, the guy decided to immediately counterattack. With lightning speed he approached the enemy and was ready to strike. His attack was incredibly powerful and hit the target, causing the bandit to fly across the room and hit the wall. After just a few minutes, the seemingly unequal duel was easily won, with only one Chen Liuhe left standing. But that was not all, because somewhere the culprit of what happened here was hiding, the one who invited him here, Zhou Yongkang. He didn't have to wait long. After the battle he himself came and praised the guy, appreciating his fighting skills. He was surprised how he could kill his best people so easily. Because the bandit misjudged the situation, Chen Liuhe rushed towards him and was ready to deal with him here and now. He hit him in the face. It seemed that he put his anger into this blow. As a result, Zhou Yongkang flew several meters and stopped only thanks to the wall. The bandit did not expect such an outcome of events. His whole face was covered in blood, but Chen Liuhe was not going to stop there. He picked up a machete and approached the enemy. After that, he offered Zhou a choice: either he explains what happened here or he loses his own life. In response, the boss's relative asks him not to do this and invites him to join their gang. The guy laughed at such a proposal. He couldn't believe that this guy had the audacity to offer him cooperation after what happened a minute ago. Zhou Yongkang, trying to justify himself, says that he understood everything wrong and everything that happened here was just a test of his skills. The guy didn't believe him, everything looked too strange. He asked why he should believe him and start cooperating with him. As it turned out, Zhou Yongkang planned to kill his own father-in-law in order to take over the clan. In return, he offers to return all the profits from the club to them, and also open a second one. Chen Liuhe was not going to agree to this. He did not see the strength in the one who was now kneeling before him, and wasn't he afraid that he would simply be handed over. After that, the man jumped to his feet and declared that if his boss saw in someone a danger that could destroy him, he would never let her live normally, and even if they did not make an agreement, he would kill him. The two of them had a common enemy, so why don't they join forces against the Black Dragon clan? It sounds like a good deal. Only by joining forces can they defeat him. Zhou Yongkang asked to remember that the only way for him to feel safe is to kill Chang Yun. After listening to everything, this guy says that he didn't expect such big ambitions from a man who cheats on his wife with his mother-in-law. The bandit replies that his father-in-law is a very careful person, and it is very difficult to plot around him. Only now he has the opportunity thanks to the task of killing Chen Liuhe. After weighing the pros and cons, the guy agreed to help him. Now it was the best decision, but he warned Zhou Yongkang that if he betrayed him, he would not live. In the end, the two shook hands. Who would have expected such an outcome? It looks like something interesting is brewing. Standing in the Black Dragon garden, Zhou Yongkang reported to his father-in-law that he tried with all his might to force the guy to come over to his side, but he refused. In addition, he came up with a story that he not only treated him, but also slapped him, which means that he insulted the entire Black Dragon clan. From this story, Chang Yun became furious. He broke a glass of wine, and calling Chen Liuhe a bastard, told his people to prepare people. Zhou Yongkang was happy. The old man took the bait. Everything went exactly according to the plan he had come up with. All that was left was to wait. Meanwhile, Chen Liuhe was doing nonsense in the club. It seemed like he had just been killed in a mobile game, which made him very angry. Suddenly there was a knock on his door. It was the postman. He said that they had sent him a parcel. The guy thought that it was some kind of mistake, because he had not ordered anything. Perhaps it was some kind of surprise from a fan. The guy thought so and happily took the parcel. He was very interested in what was inside, but most likely it was nothing good. The messenger looked suspicious, and indeed, as soon as the package was taken, he ran around the corner and looked at the timer. It was 0 seconds. It looked like the package contained a bomb that was supposed to kill Chen Liuhe. But something went wrong. The device did not work. The man was very surprised. Everything should have gone smoothly. Suddenly he notices someone who, according to his plan, should already be dead. The hero stood opposite him and with a smile on his face asked who he was and why he was trying to kill him. This killer was not simple. He is a real professional who took the lives of a very large number of people. He was very scared. This was the first time something did not go according to his plan. Now he will have to confront the one who wants to kill him. Chen Liuhe noticed that the killer was very dedicated to his work, but his homemade bomb turned out to be completely childish. At this moment, the enemy, having considered his next step, asked what he was talking about. There was no time to think at all. In the end, he makes a decision and, screaming "Go to hell," he takes out his gun and tries to end everything with one shot. The hero got angry from such games. He was infuriated by opponents who could not fight fairly. Meanwhile the killer, taking advantage of the moment, began to run away. He was terrified when he accepted this order. It could not have occurred to him that everything could turn out to be such bad events. Chen Liuhe ran after him, but fell behind. The enemy turned out to be very fast, but the guy was confident that he could catch up with him. After a short chase, he found himself on the medical floor. Looking around, he looked for his target, but he was nowhere to be found. Using his unique sense, which the guy had developed over many years of working as a bodyguard, he scratched the area. This yielded results. He felt something and immediately rushed to the intended place. Confidence was visible on his face. Having entered the desired room, he found himself in a massage room. It was clear from the worker's face that she was worried about something. Chen Liuhe immediately realized that the killer was somewhere here. He could only come up with a plan of action. Closing the door behind him, he spoke to the client and said that he was a jack of all trades, including in the field of massage. The guy hints that fate itself brought them together and invites her to make her own unique one, service. With her glance, the worker made it clear where exactly the enemy was. Chen Lihu continued his performance and waited for the perfect moment. It worked, the killer bought it, and right at the moment when he had already mentally won, a fist appeared right in front of his face. He was very surprised, the situation required urgent action from him. He couldn't think of anything better than to grab the girl and use her as a hostage. Having done this, he begins to threaten and says that if Chen Liuha takes even one more step, he will put a bullet in this girl's head. But the guy didn't follow the enemy's lead, he just looked at him sarcastically. It seemed like he knew what he was doing. The killer continued his monologue and ordered the hero from the door, otherwise he will kill everyone who is now in this room. But the guy was unshakable. He says that if you want to kill, then kill now, but he will still defeat him, and that he has nothing to do with mercenaries. At this moment, the enemy lost his temper and began shouting that Chen was talking nonsense, ordering him to behave normally, because he was determined enough to kill the hostage. Hearing this chatter, the guy looked at the killer with eyes full of determination and said that if he really could do this, he would have shot the girl long ago. As a result, he concludes that this man is weak both physically and psychologically. He should put down the gun and change jobs. From such words, the enemy finally breaks down and, shouting that he is one of the best killers in the whole world, begins to shoot uncontrollably in the direction of the hero. But the guy was too good, he dodged all the bullets. It seemed the killer had shot the entire clip of his pistol. Deftly getting closer, Chen swings his fist at the enemy with all his might. At the most tense moment, the phone beeped, which is why the guy, to the killer's great surprise, stops and picks up the phone. On the phone, Chen heard that the food delivery service where he ordered lunch was out of his favorite fried eggs, which makes the guy furious. Having finished the conversation, he again turned his head towards the enemy, and, having mentioned how food delivery sucks these days, he suggested continuing. The killer was in shock. This guy drove him crazy. He just didn't know what to do. He could only make empty threats. Chen got tired of listening to this and decided to quickly end everything with one precise blow, from which the man flew several meters away. The excited hostage was finally saved. She almost lost consciousness, only the strong shoulder of the hero saved her from falling. When everything was finished, the allies, Huang Bai and a couple of other guys, arrived, but help was no longer needed. The neighbor realized that everything had already been decided without them. He was embarrassed. This was no longer happening in first time. But the allies who arrived in time could still help. Chen asked them to take the enemy to the fourth office, where he was going to interrogate him. Upon learning of what happened, Chang Yun was furious. He spent a lot of money and achieved nothing. An order was received to use Plan B. At this time, at the Full Bowl Club, two attractive girls come into Chen's room. One of them says that she wants to thank the savior of her right hand. The guy, whose mouth at that moment was filled with noodles, was very surprised. The food became in his throat. Was the girl really hinting at exactly what he was thinking about? The girl immediately sat down next to him and with an admiring look began asking him about the details of the incident. She was especially interested in whether the killer had betrayed his employer, but as it turned out, the police took him away before they could interrogate him. The beauty says that it is annoying, but she will buy him a bottle of good wine to make him more cheerful. Chen readily agreed. The other girl thanks the hero again for what he did, and together they propose to raise their glasses and say a toast. After the toast, the guy thanks his companions and they drink wine from glasses together. The girl asks if the wine is really delicious, but Chen suspected something. As it turned out, he didn't drink anything, but only pretended to. The guy pretended that he fell for this trick and pretended to say that the wine was very tasty. Continuing to play the role, he says that he feels bad, and a woman with a calm face playfully wonders what's wrong with him. In the end, Chen pretends that he is completely asleep, and the girl concludes that no matter how strong a man is, he cannot escape from a beautiful woman. The guy was sitting on the sofa with his eyes completely closed, and the girl was slapping him on the face to check if he was sleeping soundly. She concludes that he is indeed unconscious, but the tension was visible on her face. It seems that she did not do all this of her own free will. She picks up the phone and says that she did everything as they asked and asks what she should do next. In response she hears that he needs to be delivered to the right place. Continuing the conversation, the girl asks what will happen to her husband and child. She is told that when she brings the guy here, they will let them go as promised. Very worried, she hung up. looking at Chen with a very sad face and apologized to him. She really was forced to do this. The Black Dragons believed that everything was going according to their plan. One of them brought the hero wrapped in a bag to a certain underground parking lot. Chan Yun was smoking a cigarette, at which time one of his assistants threw the guy onto the asphalt right behind him. After that, the bag is torn from the guy's face. The mafia boss looked at him over his shoulder and said in an arrogant voice that they had met again. Feeling the power, he kicked the guy in the face with the words about what he was going to do now, because he is such a tough fighter and is not afraid of either killers or bombs. But there was no fear at all on the guy's face. He looked confidently at the enemy and asked if he really sent that killer, because this is a very stupid strategy. Chan Yun got very angry from this. He started kicking the guy even harder and saying that despite everything, he is now in his hands. The bandit believed that Chen did not expect this, but in fact the hero had everything under control. Believing in his guaranteed victory, the villain invites the guy to choose what kind of death he wants to die. In response, he hears that Chen is not going to die here at all, and he better worry about his own life, because he raised a good son-in-law. Chan Yun couldn't understand what the guy was telling him. He orders him to express himself more clearly. In response he just turns away and says that soon he will understand everything anyway. Suddenly, the phone of all the gang members present in the parking lot rang at the same time. The mafia boss was enraged by what he heard on the phone. As it turned out his son-in-law had staged an uprising. Moreover, he managed to turn half of the gang against them and several units have already been destroyed. Chan Yun was incredibly angry. He couldn't believe that this mediocrity dared to go against him. One of the members of the gang of bandits approached Chen and kicked him and tried to find out how long they had been in cahoots. The guy replies that it doesn't matter anymore, and they are just blind bastards who can't see beyond their own noses. Chan Yun threatens the hero and says that he will never get back on his feet, calls him naive, because as long as he is alive the Black Dragon will never come into other hands. With a smile on his face, Chen asks what will happen if he does die. But the bandit just grins. He thinks that in this state the guy can't compete with him. As a result, he orders his men to kill him and then dispose of his body. But suddenly the sounds of a fight were heard from behind. Chan Yun couldn't believe his own ears. The remaining bandits turned around. They never expected events to turn out this way. The next moment, Chan Yun's wards were killed with a pistol, and he himself looked in fear in front of him and could not understand how this was possible. But it was exactly like that. The hero stood in front of him and held a pistol in his hands, which he moved towards the villain. Smiling, the guy returns to the bandit the phrase that he told him a minute earlier. He invites him to choose how he wants to die. Chan Yun says that he doesn't care how he dies. The only question is what will happen to Ms. Chen if he dies. As it turned out he had a backup plan. Chen asks where Qin Ruhan is now. In response, he hears that while they are trying to kill him, his people have already taken the woman, and advises the guy to think carefully. If the villain does not contact his people in an hour, then Miss Chen will die. At that moment the guy received a phone call. It was Zhou Yongkang. He asks if Chan Yun was killed. Chen reports that he is now alive, and besides, he has Qin Ruhan hostage. After weighing the pros and cons, the hero plans to exchange him for her. Zhou shouts into the phone in response that there is no way to do this. If they let the mafia boss go now, then there will never be another chance to capture him. He was enraged by such news. He was enraged by the fact that this old man was still manipulating him. After this, his assistant says that he can go and find people who will help in this situation. Zhou agrees. It seems he has come up with some kind of plan with which he can kill two birds with one stone. Further events take us to some abandoned factory. It seems that Qin Ruhan is being held hostage here. It really was like that. She was sitting on a chair with her eyes and mouth bound. She was guarded by two bandits. One of them, looking through binoculars, informs the second that someone has arrived. As it turned out, the second bandit was the sniper who was hired to eliminate the woman. He set himself the goal of killing Chen. The former sniper picked up binoculars and looked out the window. There he saw a guy leading an old man whose eyes and hands were blindfolded. After this, he uses voice communication to inform his people to take combat readiness and cordon off the building. Chen and Chan went into the room. Two bandits shined flashlights on them. They ordered the guy to remove the bandage and tape from their boss. He did everything as they asked. The bandits told the boss that everything would end soon. The hero brought the mafia boss to the indicated place. Now he wants to find out where Qin Ruhan is. One of the bandits uses a voice link to tell the two to gather at the 6th position and prepare to make a deal, but instead of an answer, he hears some noise. The villain is trying to find out what happened there, and asks for an answer immediately. The binoculars again, he sees that in fact Bai stood behind his boss. He killed 2 people. The sniper was dumbfounded. He realized that this was just a trick, and the real Chen was somewhere nearby and his hands were still untied. Suddenly they heard some noise behind them, and a moment later the armored door to their room was blown up. When the door fell to the ground, they saw that one of their people was lying on it, with a knife sticking out of his chest. After that, they saw some kind of grenade in the sky. At the same moment it explodes and blinds the 2 bandits. Due to the fact that they could not see anything, they could only shoot uncontrollably into the void, but in response, knives flew in their direction. These blades, unlike their bullets, reached their target, as it turned out that the one who threw them was Chen Liuhe. The former sniper immediately recognized this guy. The bandit understood that he was now in a very disadvantageous position, but he still has a backup plan. He quickly rushes to Qin Ruhan and grabs her by the throat, telling the guy to stand still. Otherwise, he threatens to kill himself along with her. As it turns out he had explosives on his chest. The villain once again repeats that the guy should stand still, otherwise they will all die. Chen Liuhe assesses the situation and understands that these are remote-controlled explosives. The sniper orders not to do anything rash, but to simply raise his hands because there is another bomb on him. The hero obeys and raises his hands up. First he needed to figure out where another bomb was hidden. The second bandit who was in this room still could not come to his senses. He did not see anything because of the blinding grenade. Taking advantage of the moment, Chen takes his last knife and kicks it towards the suicide bomber. The blade hits the enemy's hand, the detonator flies away, and at the same moment the hero delivers a powerful blow. From this attack the liar flies to the other end of the room. It seems that everything was successful. Chen Liuhe removes the bandages from Qin Ruhan. She was saved. The first thing her eyes saw was a guy who says that everything is fine. The woman thanks him from the bottom of her heart. But this was not the end. Qin draws attention to the fact that their old acquaintance is still alive. He stood on his feet and pulled a dagger from his wounded hand. Empty syringes were visible under his foot. The villain says that although this is not particularly pleasant, this drug is very cool. Chen realized that this is the same drug that girl used. The hero tells Qin to run away quickly and hide somewhere safe. The bandit, shouting "Go to hell," had already begun his attack. He was very fast. Most likely this was due to the effect of a strange drug. The guy dodges the blow. The floor right under him shattered into small pieces. The attack turned out to be incredibly strong. Apparently the substance gives not only speed but also great strength. The villain immediately prepared a second attack. Chen decides not to rush yet and simply stands up in defense. He managed to block this blow, but this does not change the fact that it was so strong that the guy moved several meters back. The hero decides to counterattack. He grabs the bandit's hand. He, in turn, did not expect such actions. The guy's movement was so fast that he didn't even see him. Having received a window for attack, the guy knees the enemy's stomach with all his might, causing the villain to bleed from the mouth. Chen wants to end everything here and now. He takes a knife and pierces the sniper's chest. It was all over. After this, the guy carefully monitored the situation for a few more moments. This battle was not easy for him. When Qin Ruhan saw that the battle was over, she ran to Chen and threw herself on his neck. She was very grateful to him. He tells her that she should not be afraid, because now everything is in order, but the woman was very scared. Suddenly Chen's phone rang. The voice on the phone told him that they had problems and Zhou Yongkang had brought people to kill them. The hero was shocked. He did not expect such a betrayal. The situation turned out to be very difficult. The traitor brought many people with machine guns. They blocked the only entrance to the building. Huang Bai hid with his hostage behind a concrete column and tried with all his might to shoot back. Chen Liuhe came to the rescue and asked if his neighbor was okay. He replied that he was fine and asked what this thing was in his hands. The guy with a grin on his face says that soon he will understand everything himself. The heroes, hiding behind the concrete walls, are surprised that for some reason the villain stopped shooting. Zhou Yongkang addressed them over the loudspeaker, telling them to come out and he is not their enemy. He just wants Chan Yunfuk to die. Chen understands that the bandit is lying, because a guy like him can never be trusted. Zhou continued the conversation. further persuading them to voluntarily leave the building. He says that he just came to pick them up. Suddenly the guy says that he agrees to leave, but he still won't get it. At that moment he throws the grenade he was holding in his hands. The bandits all raise their heads up, trying to understand what was flying at them. Chen tells them to try the power of their own bombs and presses the button, which is immediately followed by an explosion of enormous power. The explosion affected almost all the villains. They could no longer fight normally. One of the villains tells his boss that all the people are injured. Zhou Yongkang is very angry because their own bomb was used against him. The leader did not have time to finish his sentence, when suddenly the man who was standing next to him was shot in the head. Zhou orders the remaining people to immediately shoot Chen, because he is coming and was already quite close. But nothing works out for them. The guy turned out to be much more accurate. He eliminates his charges and points a gun at the head of their leader. With the words that it's all over, the hero was about to pull the trigger. But literally a second before that, a shot was heard from another place. The bullet hit the guy right in the chest, causing him to bleed. As it turned out, it was a girl with blue hair who shot. The guy fell to the ground from the injury he received. Zhou couldn't believe his own eyes. They succeeded. Her bodyguard says that they won and now she can settle old scores. With words about how great his assistant is, the bandit leader pushes the guy and asks him what happened and why he doesn't do anything more. Then something happens that he definitely did not expect. The guy suddenly grabbed his leg with his hand and knocked him out with one blow. The girl with blue hair was also perplexed. Only when she turned around, the knife that the hero had thrown flew into her throat. She falls to the ground, and the guy is glad that he put on a bulletproof vest and a bag of blood. It saved his life. But this evening he was not the only one who surprised. The girl who should already be dead suddenly gets up. She again used some kind of substance. Getting up, she says with a crazy look that this new type of drug is very good. Her eyes were full and furious. She rushed at the guy and hit him with all her might, but he managed to block the blow. The impact was very powerful. The shock wave scattered several meters and raised all the dust around. The guy dodged the next blow and launched a counterattack with a precise blow to the stomach. With this blow, any fighter would have fallen, but for some reason she continued to stand on her feet. The hero decides to strike again. He hit her right in the face, but she was still calm. She seemed to not feel pain at all. This surprised Chen very much. He understands that things are bad. Apparently this is some new type of drug. Now he needed to retreat for a while. Having made several successful dodges, the guy waited for the right moment and kicked. This kick turned out to be more effective. He managed to knock the enemy down. Chen was very tired. This battle was not easy for him, but there was no time to rest, followed by another blow from the girl. The guy doesn't have time to dodge. She moves too fast, and the missed blow sends the hero flying into a parked car nearby. This drug has made her strength and speed far beyond human limits. It will be very difficult for him to win this fight. A moment later, the bodyguard was in front of him. She grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. At that moment, Huang Bai ran out of the building with a machine gun in his hands, saying that he wanted to help his brother. But unfortunately, his accuracy left much to be desired. After firing the entire clip, he did not hit a single cartridge. After this, the girl throws Chen with all her might, like a sports equipment, towards his assistant. She hit the target and ended up with both guys on the ground. The hero quickly came to his senses, but things were bad. The enemy took out a rocket launcher and it was necessary to urgently come up with something. Chen notices a pistol lying nearby. He grabs it and hits the rocket launcher with a precise shot. Thanks to this, the weapon in the girl's hands exploded. She clearly did not expect that her weapon would destroy her. Finally, it was all over. The guy sat on the asphalt and looked tiredly at the destruction around him. All that remained was to take the final step. All three approached Chang Yun. Chen tells him that the explosion turned Zhou into ashes, and now it's his turn. The mafia boss says that he underestimated the guy, but let him not think that he can escape so easily, because he has no idea how deep this pond is. Suddenly the hero's phone rang. The voice on the receiver said that he knew that Chang Yun was in his hands and very strongly asked to be released. The guy asks who he is and why he wants Chang Yun to live. The voice on the phone replies that he knows perfectly well who he is. Apparently it was an old acquaintance of our hero. He offers Chen an agreement under which if he releases Chang Yun and does not destroy the gang of black dragons, then they can become partners and he will receive a lot of money. The guy replies that this offer is very attractive. He knew that the person on the other end is very influential, but Chin Ruhan did not agree. The woman is furious and tries to take the gun away from the guy and says that she will kill Chan Yun herself, she will never let him go. Chen looked at her and asked if she was really ready to go to the end and if she had the courage to kill him. In response, Chin Ruhan remembers that he is the one who killed her father and she wants Chang Yun to pay the same price. Hearing this, the guy puts the gun in the woman's hand. It looks like she really found the strength and wants to do it. Realizing that now his life could end, the mafia boss asks him to wait and asks if she knows what kind of person her father really was. In response, the woman says that the one who killed her father has no right to speak ill of him and insult him. But Chang Yun continued, he said if she didn't believe him, then let her go back and ask her vice president about it. He insisted that she knew nothing about her own father. These words made Chin Ruhan think. What the mafia boss was saying confused her, and the thought that he was telling the truth flashed through her head. After that, Chang Yun turned to Chen Liuhe and advised him to listen to the person on the phone, otherwise he would get into big trouble. But the guy wasn't scared at all. He turned his head towards the villain and simply advised him to shut his mouth. After that, he took the gun away from the woman and, saying that a person who commits a crime for his own personal gain does not deserve to live, points the gun at Chang Yun. And finally he pulls the trigger, the bullet hits the enemy directly in the forehead, after which he falls dead. On the phone, Chen Liuhe telling the man that he accidentally lost his temper. In response, the voice laughed and said that so be it, but now the guy's death is inevitable. He hung up and turned to Chin Ruhan, saying that she wouldn't get her hands dirty, but in response the woman said that she was too weak. That's why she needs a man like him. She agrees but says that she needs to become stronger. The woman asks to stay with her so that the guy can witness her changes. It was clear from her face that she is serious. Clear from Chen's face that the hero agreed. They shook hands, saying that then he would be a good person until the very end. After this, the guy asks how she will thank him, hinting at something unusual. Chin Ruhan replies that she will give him a promotion and tells him to close his eyes. He did everything as she told him, but he was surprised why he suddenly smelled smoke. When he opened his eyes, he saw Huang Bai crawling towards him with kisses. He didn't like this joke and punched his partner in the face, after which the guy offers to forget about it and get out of here as quickly as possible. Their plan was to take the remaining shares and resources of the Black Dragons and use them for good. He assumed that the person on the phone was the real owner and that in reality the Black Dragons were just their pawns. Events take us to the Full Bowl Club where Chen and Chin discussed business with some man. It was Su Shirong. He was appointed the new leader of the Black Dragons. He was very grateful and said that from that day on he would do whatever they told him. Continuing the conversation, the woman said that they would not force him to commit crimes and as long as the partners worked together, he did not have to worry about making money. In honor of this, the new head of the band of Black Dragons makes a toast and offers a drink. He also took out a gift from his jacket pocket. It was a trading card. Everyone there was rich and famous. As Su said, Shirong is a great opportunity to meet strong people. The heroes accepted this gift. Chen Liuhe thanked him for the gift and said that this card would be very useful to them, and he also asked whether Su knew who was behind Chang Yun. At first the man didn't understand what was going on, but then he remembered that his boss once said that he was in contact with one person, but no one had ever seen him. But Chen Liuhe immediately realized that this was the same person with whom he spoke on the phone. He asked Su to inform him if this person contacted him. After this, the guy asks the woman if she has heard anything about her vice president, but she replies that most likely he ran away. Thinking about this, the guy concludes that he could not run far, and at the same time, he learned about what happened only in the evening. Chin Ruhan is afraid that he might come back and create problems. Chen confirms the woman's fears and says that this rat will not so easily give up what he owned. Chin wants to find this person, but the hero asks to postpone this issue until later, but now he wants to talk about tomorrow. In response to the perplexed faces of his interlocutors, the guy talks about the question of what to wear tomorrow. Shopping turned out to be not such an easy task. They had been shopping for 5 whole hours. Chen complains that shopping with a woman is terrible. On the side, the guy heard a strange couple, and at that moment Chin tells him to try on one suit. Reluctantly, the guy agrees and goes into the locker room. The woman at this moment continues to look at some other options. Suddenly some strange guy approaches her, calling her a beauty. he asks if he can find out her name, because he cannot take his eyes off her charm. But Chin Ruhan did not appreciate his efforts and simply remained silent. The blonde decides that she is probably just shy. Considering himself irresistible, he comes closer and puts his hand on the woman's shoulder. In response she asks him to move away. Chen, who had just left the fitting room, sees this and immediately stands up for his friend, grabbing the man's hand. Bondin was furious. He was not used to being treated like this for years. The man asked the guy who he was and how dare he bother him. The hero ignores him, but this makes the man even angrier. He decides to fight back and attacks from behind. But the guy dodged the blow without even looking back. The man tries to kick him, but he again moves to the side with a deft movement. This situation completely brought the blonde and himself out of his mind and he rushed with his fists at Chen, but no matter how hard he tried, not a single blow reached the target. In the end, he got tired. The man couldn't understand how this guy does this, and the hero, teasing him, says that if he gets this suit dirty, he'll have to pay for it. These words gave the blonde the strength to take another blow, but Chen ran out of patience and knocked out the upstart with one blow. The blow was strong. The man's nose began to bleed. When he realized that he had lost, he began to throw threats that he was from the influential Wang family. Next, the story takes us to an office where a man named Wang Qinglong sits. He is the chairman of the Wang group. Suddenly a young, pretty secretary runs into his office with the words that his young master is in trouble. She showed Wang Qinglong a video of his son being beaten by Chen. From this scene the man becomes furious. It looks like this guy with blue hair is tired of life. The secretary says that she found this man and warns that if this video gets into the network, her boss will lose face. He tells the girl not to worry and he will sort it out completely, after which she agrees and leaves. The man found out all the available information about the hero, and in his monologue he says that there is a path to heaven and hell, but the guy will not go anywhere, because tomorrow he will die. Meanwhile, after shopping, the couple went to have lunch at a restaurant. Chin make a remark to Chen, because he is behaving indecently, and asks since he is alone with the girl that he should behave appropriately. In response, the guy says that shopping with her was more tiring than a marathon and now he has to make up for lost time with good food. Having filled his belly with food to capacity, a satisfied Chen leaned back in his chair, and Chin said that he doesn't even know how to flirt, which means he doesn't deserve this food. At that moment, the guy seemed to be wedged. He immediately became much more serious. After that, he took the girl by the hand and said that before she came to him, his life was like a pool of stagnant water, until she appeared like a star in the sky that shines brighter than the sun. From such words, Chin Ruhan was fascinated. She realized that she was very mistaken when she said that the guy did not know how to flirt. Continuing his speech, the hero says that she is not like the stars in the sky, but she is firmly imprinted in his heart. The girl looked at Chen with fascinated eyes. He ended with a phrase about whether she, as a lover, could finish this dinner. Chin didn't understand what he was talking about at first, but as it turned out, he just asked her to pay the bill for dinner. Chin was very angry. She grabbed a chair. At that moment she wanted to kill this fool. After that, they went home. It was already evening outside. In the car the hero made excuses and said that it was just a bill that she paid. Suddenly he notices an SUV in the rearview mirror. The car has been following them for a long time. Chen understands that someone has been watching them for a long time. At one point, the SUV began to overtake, and as it turned out, 4 heavily armed soldiers were sitting inside. Sensing danger, the guy makes a decision and turns the steering wheel, causing the car to break through the fence and slide into the forest. When the mercenaries saw this, they asked their boss what to do next. In response they heard that there was only one way out. They needed to follow them. Hearing the order, the soldiers get out of the car together and head into the forest in pursuit of the escaped heroes. One of them, who walked first, warned the others that the target was an accurate shooter, a good fighter, and he would do anything to achieve his goal. The car in which the guy and the girl were stopped nearby in the forest. Chin, who did not notice the chase, asked what the hell he was doing. She was scared and mistakenly assumed that Chen intended to do something indecent to her, because there was no one else nearby. The hero replies that someone will appear here soon, so she should stop her inventions. He promises not to do anything strange. Meanwhile, the mercenaries discovered a car in which there was supposedly a guy and a girl. They silently approached from behind. They decided to split up. 2 went into the car, one climbed a tree and the other hid in the bushes. Approaching the car, one of them quickly opened the door and pointed a gun inside. He shouted not to move, but there was no one in the car. Suddenly a noise was heard from behind the bushes. One of the mercenaries turned around and at the same moment a blow came from behind him. It turned out to be Chen Liuhe. He knocked out the enemy with one blow and then picked up a pistol and shot at the soldier in the tree. The guy was very accurate, so his bullet reached the target and this enemy fell to the ground, and the hero continued to shoot. While simultaneously fighting off 3 enemies, he picks up a mobile phone and seems to be giving some kind of signal. This was indeed the case. He gave some kind of sign to Chin Ruhan, who at that moment was standing somewhere behind and holding a rope in her hands. The next moment she pulled it and at the other end of the rope a trap rose, which the two of them had prepared in advance. One of the enemies fell for this. He turned around and, mistaking the cardboard for the attacker, began to shoot at it. At the same time, Chen approached him from behind and pointed his pistol at the back of his head. Only at that moment the mercenary realized that he had been deceived. The guy ordered the soldier to slowly let go of the weapon. He wanted to ask him for something. But suddenly, out of nowhere, another enemy appeared. Now he brought the barrel of a pistol to the hero's temple. Things were bad. His companion was also discovered and captured. The situation takes an unexpected turn. The guy understands that he was in a lot of trouble. He needed to quickly come up with some kind of plan to save himself and Chin Ruhan. The mercenary tells Chen to drop his weapon and raise his hands, otherwise he cannot guarantee the safety of this beautiful woman. At this moment the villain rejoiced. He was happy because he had prepared his best vest, which saved him from a direct hit from a bullet. Realizing that the advantage is not on his side, the hero raises his hands. Now this was the best decision. At the same time, one of the mercenaries tries to contact the other, but he does not answer. Everyone around him thinks that he is dead. But this doesn't really bother anyone, because the fewer people, the more money each of them will receive. Besides, the boss only needed a guy, and the girl could be useful for someone else. Chen Liuhe, standing with his hands raised, asks who sent them here. In response he hears that no one knows. One can only say that it was one of the big shots. As soon as the villain tried to take the gun from the guy's hands, he at the same moment knocks the enemy down with a deft movement. Then you grab his hand and deliver a fatal shot directly to your opponent's head. The rest of the bandits, calling him a bastard, begin to shoot uncontrollably in his direction. The guy is saved only by the body of the enemy he killed. Having waited for the right moment, the hero raises his pistol and fires several accurate shots. Fortunately, these shots hit the target. He got rid of 2 mercenaries at once, while the girl was safe, although scared. She opened her eyes only a few seconds after the shots. Sweat appeared on her face. She was very scared. Well, everything has already been settled. The guy tells her to relax and quickly get out of here. They got back into their car and went home. This time Chin Ruhan was driving. At this time, Chen was sitting on the next seat and trying to do something using 2 phones, but he was not very successful. The girl tried to calm him down. Chin Ruhan apologized for getting him into trouble again, because they only agreed on help with the black dragons. Chen answers that she really is like a disaster. The girl clearly wanted to hear some other answer. Although things weren't going well for the guy, a smile and confidence were still visible on his face. After all, he is not a coward and he has the strength to destroy anyone who tries to deceive him or harm him in any way. The girl notices that he really doesn't seem to be a person, but at the same time he happily stays with her. The hero once again jokes with her and says that he doesn't mind having fun with her. After which he deservedly receives a slap in the face with the words that now is not the time for stupid jokes. Chen makes excuses and says that it's just a joke, but she herself understands the reason why he still helps her. The reason is quite simple. They use each other. He protects her and she provides for him. In fact, all this is just preparing the guy for the trip to Beijing. He promises to return to Beijing in 3 years and make the bastards pay with their own blood. They continued driving along the night road and arrived home an hour later. At home, the 3 of them gathered at the computer and, using the phone of one of the mercenaries, tried to find out information about the employer. Shin did all this. Chingu, Chen supported him morally. At some point, the sister got tired of her brother's stupid behavior, and she did what she wanted for the last few minutes. He really deserved it. After several hours of hacking attempts, we could finally say that everything was a success. Shin's genius abilities. Chingu managed to extract the contents from several phones to find out the location of another phone. Thanks to this, they were able to find out an address in the north of the city, most likely from there the order for the murder was received. Late at night they arrived at the place. It turned out to be an elite area of the city. Approaching the door with the desired number, the guy couldn't wait to find out who really was behind the curtain. At the address they managed to find out there was a luxurious mansion with security. Having gotten closer, the guy was able to hear the dialogue between the two guards. They were talking about the weather and a future thunderstorm. Chen, standing near the fence, assessed the situation. He managed to find out that two guards were near the door, and there were also other bodyguards in the villa. Having contacted his sister via voice communication, he asks if the target is still in the villa. Shin confirmed that the phone was still there. The guy was delighted with this information. He hoped that today he would catch this man, because he was not used to being stared at as a victim. Suddenly, in the ear in which the earphone was, a voice was heard that he did not expect to hear at that moment. It turned out to be Su Shirong. He said in a frightened voice that they have problems, because all the property of the Black Dragons was stolen. The puzzled hero tried to understand who could have done this, but there was no information yet, although there were still a couple of options. Su Shirong, he said that he would also start looking now. The crime scene was a mess, they even killed the cleaner. Chen asked if there might have been any other clues at the crime scene. As the new head of the clan reported, all the hard drives and safes were gone, and a photo of the guy was nailed to the wall with a knife. The hero tells him to start dealing with it himself and he will join after he finishes the job. At that moment, thunder roared in the sky and a large lightning struck. In his head the guy was spinning the thought that it seemed like they were hunting him again. He suggested that all these events were connected and perhaps tonight he could find the answer. It was necessary to act without delay, and with a deft movement he jumped over the high fence and found himself on the territory of the mansion. Thanks to his excellent speed, he managed to run past the guards unnoticed. Because of their inattention, they did not notice anything and only continued to smoke and chat about some trifles. But suddenly their conversation was interrupted by a knee blow to the face of one of them. They clearly did not expect something like this. The second guard immediately pulled out a gun and began shooting at the intruder. But, to his regret, the guy turned out to be quite dexterous and dodged the bullets, and then knocked him out with an elbow blow. Having eliminated the two guards who were guarding the main doors, the guy stopped for a second to understand whether they noticed him or not. Inside the mansion, Wang Qinglong was sitting in his office with some woman whom he called Lan Feng. He heard a shot and got scared. The woman with short hair advised him not to worry, because he had already paid for everything and her people would take care of the violators. She ordered one of her charges to go and see who dared to come to this house without an invitation. Meanwhile, the guy moved through the house, without any problems. He knocked out one guard after another. Suddenly, approaching the glass door, he felt danger. With his peripheral vision he saw a huge silhouette behind the glass. A few moments later, a huge fist breaks the glass door with a quick movement, almost hitting Chen. After an unsuccessful attack, the enemy behind the door takes out its other half with one powerful kick. It turned out to be a tall, big man with scars on his face. He turned to the hero and asked why he was still alive. Hearing this over a voice connection, the owner of the house was seriously scared. He thought that the guy had been dead for a long time, and he was ordering the girl to go to him. In response to this, she says that she doesn't like being told what to do. If he dares to approach their door, she will greet him properly. After this, Lan Feng tells his ward to kill the hero, to which he replies that he can do it easily and it will take him no more than 3 minutes. Chen Liuhe asks the man who he is and why he believes that he has enough strength to defeat him, but in response he hears only further threats. The guy reacted calmly. It looks like he will have to force this upstart to start speaking differently. The rivals stood opposite each other, each of them preparing for a fight that could end in the death of one of them. The guy was the first to make his move. He struck with a sharp lunge, trying to hit the man's body, but he easily blocked the blow. But the guy was not going to stop there. He still had a lot of strength. He continued to launch quick attacks on his opponent. The villain turned out to be not an easy one. He easily reflected and dodged all of Chen's attacks and waited for the right moment to strike. At one point, after another dodge, the man raised one finger up. He tried to piss off the guy, treating him like a child. He continued to do this. It seems his plan was to make the hero emotional. Chen was not one to fall for such simple tricks. He, with a cool head, continued trying to hit the villain with his blows. But at one moment the thug grabbed him by the knee and easily threw him up all the way to the ceiling. The enemy turned out to be very strong. After a missed blow, the guy, along with the chandelier that he knocked down with his body, falls to the floor. The hero knows that he is stronger and more resilient than this guy, but the situation makes it difficult for him to fight. It was too dark around. Because of this shortcoming, he only notices at the last moment that the enemy has almost hit him with his huge fist. Unfortunately, Chen does not have time to dodge. A blow of such force throws him several meters away and hits the coffee table. This was very unpleasant. He needed to take some measures if he wanted to win this clash. Do not forget that this guy is one of those who is able to find a way out of any situation. He picked up an iron stick from the floor. This was enough to turn the fight in his favor. Using his unique instincts, he waits for the perfect moment to make his next move. Having done everything as needed, he swings his weapon in the hope of hitting the enemy and causing him irreparable harm. And then something unusual happens. The blade of the blade cuts its reinforcement in half. Chen tries to understand whose weapon it is. The blade turned out to be not only very hard, but also incredibly fast. Only thanks to his dexterity the hero was able to dodge. After this, stopping only for a moment, the hero notices someone behind him. How could he end up behind him? Immediately followed by a punch to Chen's face. He could not keep up with the second opponent. This caused him to end up on the floor again, probably the most difficult mess he had ever gotten into. Anger was visible on his face. He didn't like that such vile methods of fighting were being used against him. As a result, he finds himself in a situation where any wrong move could be his last. Two very strong enemies were standing right above him. The blindfolded man remembers that 3 minutes have already passed, which means the thug's time is up. Now it's his turn. With a smile on his face, he promises that he won't even need 3 minutes, 2 will be enough. But Chen was not going to give up. He noticed that the biggest mistake during a battle was to incorrectly assess the opponent's strength. He was tense, sweat was running down his face. He needed to fully concentrate, because his enemy was unusual. It was very dark around. The light came into the room only during lightning strikes for a few seconds. Just at such a moment the guy noticed the attack. Judging by the man's appearance, the darkness in the room did not bother him in any way. Most likely he was blind. However, this did not stop him from carrying out swift attacks with his sharp blade. The hero barely managed to escape successfully. Chen decides to use a pistol, believing that if the enemy does not see, he will not be able to understand that he has taken out a pistol. But in some incredible way, the blindfolded man realized that the hero had taken out a gun, and because of this he remained unharmed. And immediately after successfully dodging, the opponent carries out a sweeping blow with the blade horizontally. Chen had to try very hard to save his life. Leaning on his hand, he defends himself from another attack with a pistol. The position in which he was in was very bad. Yet, by some miracle, he manages to hit the swordsman in the face with his fist. This will allow the guy to win a couple of seconds for himself. Taking advantage of the moment, the guy jumps back and gets to his feet. He still has a few rounds left in the pistol clip. The hero points the barrel towards the opponent and fires a large number of shots. They seem to be flying straight to the target. In a few moments everything was supposed to end in Chen's victory. However, the enemy had a different opinion. He managed to dodge one bullet, and, thanks to his incredible skill, he repels the other with a blade. This man was a true master of his craft. The hero still does not understand how he manages to read the movement of a bullet even though he cannot see. The scene was mesmerizing. Two incredibly talented fighters stood opposite each other in a dark room, illuminated only by lightning strikes. The swordsman was in a hurry, because the 2 minutes that he had assigned to himself for the murder were supposed to expire any second. Chen shoots again, but the bullet again treacherously flies past and hits the concrete wall. The next moment, the guy feels the presence of an enemy behind him for the second time in a short time. The swordsman jumped out of the darkness and put all his skill into this blow. He was sure that it would be victorious. But his blade was not destined to reach the hero. Instead, the villain felt a burning pain in his chest. It was a bullet. As it turned out, the guy secretly fired through his jacket at the right moment, right during the enemy's attack. Lying on the floor in a pool of his own blood, the swordsman tried to find out from the guy how he understood which direction to shoot. Chen actually didn't know exactly where to shoot, so he simply lured the villain to the right place. He did this with the help of shots. Realizing this, the man with a bandage on his head realized his mistake. He became very angry. He was interested in the question of why the guy allowed him to get up behind him and attack him. The answer was that the swordsman's hearing and perception were too good, so the hero could only rely on luck. But the enemy was not satisfied with such an answer. He had to find out the reason for his defeat before dying. Chen tested the limits of his opponent's abilities using bullets. This allowed him to find a hole in his defense. It cost him 4 shots. The hero didn't have time to chat anymore. He finishes with the swordsman and heads on. He still has a lot to do. There was no time at all for rest. Immediately after defeating the swordsman, a thug attacked him with a powerful blow from above. The guy jumps away at the last second, and the blow hits a stone wall which shatters into small pieces. Taking advantage of the moment, Chen shoots at the villain. This time the bullet quickly reaches its target. There were blood splashes around. The thug spoke words about revenge and killing the guy, but he was bleeding. Most likely he had already lost. A second later he falls to the stone floor. Apparently those words about revenge for his brother became his dying speech. Chen appreciated the abilities of the 2 brothers, but they were still too weak to resist him. Suddenly, along with a lightning strike, the guy once again had the feeling that someone was standing behind him. It was a thug. He managed to grab the hero by the throat and began to choke him. The guy could not believe his own eyes. The giant had the look of a wild beast. His eyes seemed to burn with a bright flame, and only one word about revenge was heard from his lips. The guy, with the last of his strength, raised his right hand with which he was holding a pistol. He had almost no air left. He had to act quickly. He still succeeded. He was able to shoot the enemy directly in the head. The brute fell on his back. His head was shot through, but Chen was in no hurry to lower the gun. Anything could be expected from this man. After that, the hero threw the gun. It still ran out of cartridges. He was shocked by how strong his enemy was. He could continue the battle after being shot in the chest. Meanwhile, in Wang Qing's office, Lan Feng was finishing another cigarette. She was clearly very irritated. Wang Qin himself packed a suitcase. It looks like he put things that were important to him there. He took it in his hands and walked up to his guard. After they were sure that everything was in order, the man was ready to leave. But suddenly the woman pointed the gun at the one she was supposed to protect. It was unexpected. He paid her a lot of money. As it turned out, she was furious that her 2 brothers had died defending a freak like him, a loss that could not be measured in money. In response, the man notes that they simply misjudged their strength and that there is no need to put all the blame on him. She cannot just kill him. The woman held the pistol loaded and her finger was on the trigger. At that moment the question was being decided in her head whether to leave Wang Qin alive or not. As a result, she cools down and lowers the gun. The man exhales with relief. It looks like he will live a little longer. But suddenly Lan Feng gives a command to her dogs. They react immediately. A second later 2 evil beasts stood near her. Wang Qin was scared to death. The most terrible scenarios of what would happen in the next minutes began to be built in his thoughts. After this, the woman gave another command, after which 2 angry dogs began to slowly walk towards the man. Realizing that he is in mortal danger, Wang Qin asks Lan Feng to come to his senses, because if she kills him, then she herself will be in danger for the rest of her life. But it was too late. 2 animals rushed at the man. They bit him with their sharp fangs many times. After a few minutes, the victim stopped resisting. His body lay on the floor completely covered in blood. Lan Feng just stood and watched this picture all this time. From the outside it looked very creepy. When it was all over, she simply packed her things and, saying that she didn't kill anyone, got ready to leave. She took a suitcase with her. As it turned out, it contained ampoules that most likely contained the drug. But at one moment one of the dogs heard some sound from the corridor. He began to bark loudly. The dog sensed danger in the one who was gradually approaching their room. As it turned out, it was Chen Liuhe. He entered the room in the hope of finally finding out who had been preventing him from living all this time. The first thing he saw was Lan Feng. They made eye contact. The woman took the receiver out of her ear. It would interfere in the fight. Both people understood that a fight was inevitable. As soon as the receiver was in her hands, she angrily crushed it. Lan Feng promises the guy to make him pay a high price for killing her brothers. The hero was surprised by the situation in the room. He could not understand why they were fighting among themselves. After that, he noticed a safe and a hard drive. These were the things that were recently stolen from the Black Dragon clan. The guy realized that he had come to the right place. He was going to show all his hatred, even if a woman stood up to him. Lan Feng didn't listen to this chatter. Instead, she commanded her loyal dogs to attack Chen. At that same second they rushed at the guy. It seemed they were even more angry than usual. The hero was scared. He did not at all expect that his rival was the owner of 2 mad dogs. Fortunately, he took with him the knife of those guys with whom he had fought before. People use these knives to fight lions in Africa. He tried to fight off with this huge knife 2 angry animals that were ready to tear him into pieces. But at the same moment, Lan Feng, without wasting any time, takes out a pistol and shoots the guy in the right hand. He could no longer hold the knife. Because of this, the hero falls to the floor, and 2 dogs pounce on him and begin to bite him with all their might. The animal bites were very strong. He immediately began to bleed and tried to fight them off with his fists. Suddenly one of the dogs targeted him at the most important place. Chen had to act immediately. The guy, with a quick and deft movement, using both legs, grabbed the dog by the throat, the only way he could neutralize it. Then he hits it with all his strength with his fist, because biting in that very place is very mean and rude. By some incredible miracle he managed to fight off these 2 rabid creatures. This was just the beginning. Immediately after that 2 shots fly at him at once, in the right and left hand. Lan Feng continued to shoot further and further. Her anger did not subside even for a second. She wanted more than anything to get rid of Chen. The guy only had time to jump away from her shots. He needed to try very hard to survive in this situation. Although the woman had run out of ammunition, the anger on her face burned as brightly as at the moment when she learned about the death of her brothers. Even without ammunition, she posed a great danger. 2 dogs had already come to their senses and were ready to attack again. The guy got to his feet, although the wound from the bullets did not damage his bones, but they interfere with his movements. He can only use this trick. He stood in a stance and put his finger in his shoe. He waited for the moment when the dogs would get as close to him as possible. As it turned out, his trick was to attack the dogs with his feet, which were wearing socks that he had not washed for at least a month. Oddly enough, it worked very effectively. Both animals were neutralized, and Lan Feng looked at it all with disgust. This was not enough for the guy. These animals angered him too much. He was going to teach them a lesson. Taking his socks in his hand, he set off in pursuit, and the dogs ran away from him with all their might. But they could not run far. Now they were neutralized for a long time. After this, Chen turns to the woman and with a perky look suggests that she fight him, and that's all Lan Feng wanted. With anger on her face, she was the first to attack. She was very good at kicking. They were very fast, but the guy was also good. He dodged the first blow with ease. The woman's next blows also failed to reach their target. Chen very deftly dodged them. But as it turned out, all these blows were only to distract the hero. At one point the woman hit him from above. It was clear from Lan Feng's face that this was an unusual blow and it did not end with a simple movement of the leg. As it turned out, a blade sharp as a blade was hidden in her shoes. It stopped a centimeter from the guy's eye. He managed to block this blow, but he took a lot of risks because there was very little left to his face. To save himself, the guy makes a desperate decision and grabs the blade of the blade with his teeth. At one point the opponents meet their gazes. The woman turned out to be an incredibly skilled fighter. It looks like she was preparing to strike with her other leg. This was indeed the case. Chen only had time to fend off her quick and sharp kicks. Lan Feng was completely in the air at one point. Her fighting technique was very unusual. Despite this, the hero managed to repel all attacks and throw her away from him. But while retreating, the rival manages to touch the guy's chest with her secret blade. The wound was very painful. At that second, Lan Feng was preparing to carry out another attack. Confidence was visible on her face. She believed that she was winning. The woman immediately rushes to attack. Even Chen couldn't keep up with her movements. They were so fast. He only managed to block her blows. This time it was a blow with his right foot, immediately followed by a blow with his left hand. At that moment the guy was not sure that he would have time to deflect it, but still he manages to do it. He felt severe pain. As it turned out, the blow was not only sharp but also strong. That was not all. With a deft movement the woman grabbed the hero's hand and squeezed with all her might. She managed to grab the guy. It was very dangerous for him. Such a technique could be fatal. In addition, it was an unusual and special royal cross grab. According to Lan Feng, no one had ever managed to escape from it. Such a position before. He could not believe that a woman was capable of such a thing. At this moment, Chen became truly angry, and he put all his strength into resisting the enemy. Still, He was even stronger than it might seem at first glance. With one hand he was able to lift the woman off the ground. After that, he threw her with all his might onto the floor. It was unlikely that she would quickly recover from such a blow. The guy appreciated Lanfeng's movements, but noticed that when the opponent is really very strong, they will not work. He tied the woman up because he didn't want to leave until he apologized to him. At the same time, at the other end of the city, a man once again came with a bouquet of flowers. From the conversation between the two workers, one can understand that this is one of the 7 xiaos. This is not the first time he brings a bouquet of flowers to a woman named Wang Jin. Also from their conversation one can understand that his younger brother is a spendthrift who is bedridden. At some point there was a knock on Wang Jin's door. She allowed her to enter. At that time the girl was busy with papers. Her secretary said that once again a man came to her with flowers, but she did not want to see him and asked him to say that she was not here. The secretary had no choice but to carry out the order. She was afraid of this man. He seemed a little gloomy to her. In response to Qiao he says that roses with thorns are more fragile. He asks to pick them up and hints that he will come again next time. As soon as he left the building, they immediately called him by name. Someone really wanted to meet him. As it turned out, it was a girl with red hair. She seemed to really like him and asked why that woman in the office was better than her. Hearing this, Yunqi asks his companion for a favor. Only after hearing this the girl was very happy. She was ready to do anything for the sake of her lover. After that, he doesn't go to the company building intact. This building was owned by the man's family. Once inside, they used a special elevator that only VIP clients can use. Oddly enough, they did not go up but down. The girl was very surprised. She did not know that the building goes so deep underground. After that, the man took her hand and led her forward. He asked her to let him show her something good. When they arrived at the desired floor and exited the elevator, there was a glass floor under the girl's feet, which scared her. Even lower there was a huge enclosure in which several African lions lived. Yunqi he says that these lions are his pets, and his companion, trying to hide her fear, says that she really likes them. After this, the man says that he is very touched that she is ready to do this for him, but the girl did not understand what she was talking about. Suddenly, she disappears somewhere under her feet and begins to fall. At that moment, her whole life flashed before her eyes. She understood that right now she was flying into a small room where her life would end. The psychopath stood on top and looked at all this. He was grateful to his companion for making his pets happy.